Hi guys, so continuing the delving into the contents of my pannier, I thought I'd just go through what was in the medicine bags and my handbag, bits bag, I don't know what to call it. Firstly, we'll just pop on this. So at the top we've got some latex gloves, or nitrile gloves in fact, just in case. Always best to put those on top in case you need them first. We have some tape, and then pretty standardly we've got a couple of conforming dressings. We also have the puncture repair kit for the sleeping mats in here. I don't know if Stevie is aware of that. Got a tick hook, which probably seemed like overkill in the end, but we were in Eastern Europe the right time of year. Super glue. Range of uses, not just for gluing stuff, but can also be used for gluing humans. Thermometer. And then, down here we have another bandage, another tick hook. We have some steri strips for anything not too invasive. Some alcohol cleaning wipes as well. And we have some more dressings. So we have might as well get it out down here. So some waterproof dressings, an absorbent dressing, another small absorbent dressing, and we've got some swabs in here too. We didn't actually carry a triangular bandage in the end because we had buffs and we had enough that I felt that it was a little bit overkill. Just trying to make sure there's nothing else unusual in the bottom here. I've forgotten about. Oh no, that's it. It's a tiny one, very lightweight triangular bandage, not like the big heavy ones you used to get. And then we do have as well some suture material. I am a qualified veterinary surgeon, so I do have half an idea of how to use it, but obviously the sort of thing that you shouldn't be DIYing at home. So that was it for the dressings bag. Obviously we're quite pleased we didn't need to use most of this stuff, but what we did need to do was, when I injured my elbow in Malaysia, we needed to acquire quite a few, so I had a separate bag with dressings in it that we got from the local pharmacy. Because I was getting through, I was having to do dressing changes every day, so it became quite obvious quite quickly that we needed a separate supply. We needed to save this in case we had any more emergencies. So that was the dressings bag. The other medicines, or the medicines bag as I'd call it. So in here we have a tiny pulse oximeter, which is quite a cool device that tells you oxygen saturation. These became a lot more prevalent in COVID. People using them to monitor how well they're breathing, how well their blood was absorbing oxygen essentially. But again, it's a kind of emergency bit kit. If we have got really poorly, it would just provide that other bit of information. Saturating pretty well there at 99%. Heart rate of 77. Must be very excited by doing this podcast. Right. So that's quite a cool gadget to have for emergencies. And then we have a wealth of tablets. We do as well have some rehydration sachets. We stocked up on these. We have to replenish these in India and Australia quite a lot. Water purifying tablets. More other general tablets. I have got some needles and syringes in here. As I mentioned, I am a veterinary surgeon, so I do have some level of knowledge of these things. There's another diarrhea in there. And more tablets as well, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. Oh yeah, and the sewing kit. That was probably the item in here that was used the most. So, tablets coming out of ears. And then we did have some local anaesthetics, some adrenaline and some injectable antihistamine as well in case of severe emergencies. But what have we got here? So we have some antibiotics, one sort of antihistamine, another sort of antihistamine. We still had some antimalarials left over from the courses we needed to take. These were the anti-reflux medications given to this doctor in Australia, which weren't really what we needed. Some more antihistamines. I react really badly to insect bites sometimes, so it's kind of worth having. That's the water purifiers again. Seasickness tablets. We had a few long ferries. Steve can get a bit seasick, so it wasn't worth the risk, so we had these. Got the loperamide, anti-diarrheal medication. Ended up carrying quite a lot of that without going into too much detail. I think that's all that is. More antihistamines, and some aspirin, dissolvable aspirin, and I think this is the remains of, so Wendantron. So that's anti-vomiting medication. More antidiarrheals and more antihistamines. So you can kind of see what our priorities were there. We also did carry ibuprofen, paracetamol. We tend to keep that to hand towards the end of the trip more because Stevie was suffering with his knee so much, and trying to use topical anti-inflammatories as well. So either ibuprofen or diclofenac gel on his knee too. But that served us pretty well. We did have medical advice from qualified professionals throughout the trip, so any prescription strength medications we used, we did have a few courses of antibiotics under direction of a medical practitioner, but a good starting point for a trip of this length. Right, if you're still with us, I'm going to dive into this bag. All sorts in here. Some things have probably come out now. We have a range of pens, including the Sharpie. Not always important for writing on the whiteboard and putting messages on social media, but otherwise for marking up things as well. It was pretty useful to carry a Sharpie as a permanent marker. Card reader in case of any need to transfer money while we're abroad. We have the thread for my hair when it was in braids, which I tied it up with. Stevie will tell you this is entirely unnecessary, probably was, but I used a bit of it, and having a bit of spare thread was useful for patching stuff up. We have the bag of wires, so we've got all the different charging leads in here. We've got the spare cards for the GoPro, we've got the attachment for the Garmin GPS, the E-Trex, a backup charging lead for my Chorus watch, which takes a very specific attachment. Otherwise everything else was USB or USB-C, I think it is now, apart from Stevie's iPhone. Plenty of backup leads in there. And then we've got a spare key for the hip locks that we used. Spare plug for the GoPro, spare battery for the GoPro, and a remote picture taker thing. In the end, I just put the timer on the phone when I was taking things, but that would just be like a shutter switch to my phone. So there was that bag. We had the multi-charger. This was used every single day. So it's a 4-point USB charger, so we could charge 4 things at once. This was the American plug, and then we've got a UK one. Malaysia in particular, I think, had UK plugs, so just plug it in like that. That's the European one. I believe that's the Australian one. So that allowed us to charge everything up all around the world. And the fact that it was a 4-point one as well, it would often be full in the evening, and we'd often be switching stuff onto it before we got to bed. That's the little holder for the stand, which is currently holding up the GoPro I'm filming this on, but that holds the phone as well and allowed us to take some of the pictures like you'd have seen at 1,000 miles and 6,000 miles and things like that. This is our juice bank, power bank from Elkit. This worked really well. I could survive for 24 hours charging my watch, my phone, the rechargeable batteries, everything off this, if I was careful with it. And then it'd charge up again overnight. So heavy, but yeah, couldn't have done without that. Little luxury here, this is a Kobo e-reader. Yeah, just when you need a bit of downtime. I like to read, so I'd say I'm glad I bought it. It's like 100 and something grams, so I think worth it. If you're interested in what I read around the world, I read The Slow Road to Tehran. I forget the author now, but it's about cycling in the Middle East. Very interesting book. I also read Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, the original. I read Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I'll be able to tell you who The Slow Road to Tehran is by in a minute. Yeah, which is quite an inspirational piece. Quite cool to read in Canada as well, because it's very close to where she carried out her walk. I'll leave that loading in a minute. Oh, and The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, which is popular now. Rebecca Lowe wrote The Slow Road to Tehran. So a complete mix there, but very valuable. This is a hoop glove which actually doubled up as a container for my batteries because the case broke, but nothing goes to waste when you're on tour. So these guys are rechargeable USB batteries. I have 4 of these. 2 of them are in the Garmin, 2 of them out, and you can plug them into the USB charger, charge them up every night. And then I had 2 standard Duracells as a backup, which I actually never needed to use. But if we'd been more than 24 hours without power, we'd have needed to keep the Garmin running at least for the GPS to get the tracks. So I knew I could go probably 3 days at least with all of that, even running and recording from the Garmin all the time, as much as everything else would have died. It's my diary to keep track of things and make notes every day, pretty much. So that's all good fodder for the book. I'll let you know when that comes out. Here we have our amazing logbook as well, with all our witness signatures. Always a challenge to get that signed every night. This was, it's all kind of come apart a bit now, but this was our important documents folder with passports in it, driving licence cards, things like that as well. So that was super important. That's why that all lived in here. If we ever left anything, you know, untended, this bag always came with me wherever we went. So it's easy just to scoop out. So that's probably more detail than you ever needed to know about what I carried in my pannier. I'll do a bit on the front panniers as well, I promise. That's a lot more simple, and then we'll see if we go to Steve to repack it as well and see what was in there too.